Welcome, and thank you for joining us this evening for tonight's town hall. My name is Lori Weaver, Vice President of Advancement and Marketing at Bethany, and I'm so grateful to see so many Bethanians on the screen this evening. I want to remind everyone of a couple of housekeeping items. Please remember to keep yourself muted during the conversation. Jamie, Ken, and Faith will do their best to cover all of the questions that were submitted prior to this evening. If you didn't have an opportunity to submit your question, you may do so in the Q&A box. We will post answers to any questions that we don't get to this evening on our webpage, along with a recording of this evening's conversation. I want to thank President Jamie Caridi, and Board Chairman Ken Beto for spending time with us this evening to cover all of the good news that's happening at Bethany. This evening, I have the honor of introducing Faith Daniels, class of 1979, former Emmy award-winning anchor and correspondent at CBS and NBC. Faith will be serving as our distinguished moderator. Thank you, Faith.
Thanks, Lori. I will be trying to keep my eye on the chat box tonight as well, if you have any questions that you'd like to submit. And I have twisted the arm of another member of the class of 79 to give me some assistance with that. A guy who allowed me to ditch the Skowronski handle 42 years ago is by my side here, running shotgun for me. So anyway, welcome everyone. I'm happy to be here. In addition to the questions that you'll be submitting tonight, we did have questions submitted in advance, and let's get to those right now. And of course, many of them came in, they were asking about the status of the presidential search. And this one comes from Jeffrey Schaefer, class of 77. I don't really need these, but just so I look smart. Who wants to know the status of the presidential search. The last information said reviewed and interviewed some people for the position, but felt none met Bethany's needs. And then Daniel Harry wants to know, if he's class of 74, if the candidates refused Bethany's offer. Ken, you want to take that?
Yeah, thanks, Faith, and it's good to see everybody. And I see you are Emmy winning. I see an Emmy in your background there, Faith. So congratulations. So yes, on the search. So let me just kind of review with everybody what the process was. We appointed Jamie, of course, to be interim president in December of 2021. And at that point, we went on a road to looking for a full-time president of Bethany College. And it's really a decision the board has to make. We have basically two responsibilities, selection of the president and, of course, a fiduciary responsibility. So we assigned three co-chairs for that role. The first, Thad Allen, Bethany class of 1992, and he's a bishop in the Disciples Church. Carmina Hughes, graduated in 1976, retired attorney from Baltimore. And Jamal Robinson, entertainment executive, class of 1998. And what they did, the first thing they did was put together a relatively diverse group of a search committee consisting of alumni, staff, there's athletic staff, coaches, faculty, recent students, older students, as well as a handful of trustees. And the first thing they did then, of course, was to select a search firm to use. And they were very clear with the search firm that this would be a search led by Bethany College. Oftentimes, search firms will try to lead you to a candidate to fill the position. The search firm's job is to fill the position. Our job is to fill the position which we believe is the right person. So that was done, and then the search firm went out and probably talked to 500 stakeholders at Bethany College, including alumni, students, community leaders, church, and put together a specification. And then we put that out to on the street about mid-year last year, in June, I believe it was. And with that, we got 88 candidates interested in the job for presidency at Bethany College. And by the way, I would add parenthetically, Dr. Caridi had really, there was nothing to do with this. It was the board was driving this process. And with those 88 candidates, through various Zoom interviews, et cetera, we shortlisted it down to 10. And those 10 candidates came to Pittsburgh to meet with the search committee in August of last year. And through a series of multi-day meetings with those candidates, the search committee came up with the conclusion that there were 4 possible candidates that might serve Bethany the best. And that was their recommendation. And I reminded the search committee at that point too, that, their job is they had a voice, not a vote. The board needs to decide who it's going to be. So with those 4 candidates, the executive committee of the board then interviewed those 10 candidates, 4 candidates that were shortlisted, and really came up with one that was a viable solution, we thought, for Bethany Colleges. It would have been his first presidency, a seasoned provost. And so when we finished that, Jeff Woda, who is the treasurer of the board and chair of the Finance and Administration Committee, he and I met with that candidate in November last year in Columbus, and just wanted to fill him out and say, if there's an offer, would you be interested in taking it? If we're going to go forward, if we're going to bring you to campus, we want to make sure that there's strong interest on your part. And he said, absolutely. So because of the schedule, around Christmas time, the candidate came to campus at the end of January of this year, and met with practically everybody from several student groups, faculty, staff. We had a dinner with the community leaders from the Ohio Valley, and then the board met as a group, reviewed it and talked about it. And this is really an opportunity for me to talk about the board, because there's a lot of momentum there, and a lot of time and effort spent in the search. In fact, I would add not just time, but the search was paid for, including the travel and everything else, by the board members involved to cover the cost. And it was a tough decision, but frankly, it didn't feel the candidate would serve Bethany. It was very process driven, but it's tough because you're at the end of the road and say, okay, we're done. Here's the candidate, and let's go do this. And I talked to him, and I said, listen, we're not going to make an offer. I said, we can take it one or two ways. I said, you can say, you've decided to withdraw your name, or, we're not going to make an offer. He says, I don't care. Either way is fine. And so at that point, I was like, okay, now what do we do? And we went back to Jamie then and said, frankly, we're in the middle of a multi-year plan. Would you be interested in staying with Bethany for at least another year, perhaps 2, and as we get through the strategic plan? And Jamie agreed to do that, and we'll talk about the plan. But that's where we are, and it was a lot of courage, like I said, on the board's part to say no at that point. I mean, you're basically at the altar, and to say no, we don't want to go forward. We can't make this decision, and then we asked Jamie if he would stay, and he did.
Very good. I just noticed in the chat that Lori just put up the link to the strategic plan, which we'll get to a little bit later. But next, we want to go to a question from Marcella Brownlee, class of 2010, who noticed that the tagline, small college of national distinction, had been removed. I think we used to call it a college of small distinction. We used to flip it around. But anyway, she feels that it was an important tagline. She says it's been erased from the college websites, from advertisements. She wants to know what the reason is for that. She thinks it was one of the deciding factors in her and her friends choosing Bethany over other schools, even though at the time they had less than stellar national rankings, average SAT, ACT scores, and GPAs of newly admitted freshmen were pretty low. And she ultimately decided to attend Bethany anyway. She says there's something about Bethany that numbers can't quantify, and she wants to know if the administrators no longer believe that that's the case about Bethany.
Well, Faith, I think I can answer that. And before doing so, thank you, Faith, for being willing to MC tonight's town hall. We are incredibly proud to call you a Bethanian and are just ecstatic that you joined us this evening. So again, thanks. As it relates to do the administrators, faculty, and staff not believe Bethany is a college of national distinction? Of course we do. We absolutely do. Now, what we use in a tagline, she is correct. We've not necessarily been using that in our tagline because we are in the middle of a rebranding effort. And that's for multiple reasons. One, because we have a diversity of constituencies that we are making outreach to, and those constituencies require different messaging. Candidly, the word small college of national distinction, saying you're a small college isn't a bad thing, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's a good thing to convey either. So there is that piece of it, but as it relates to kind of the underlying question of, do we not believe Bethany is a college of national distinction? Of course we do. Candidly, I wouldn't have said yes to the board if I didn't believe it was that. You feel it, it's palpable, it's real on campus. And candidly, on a daily basis, I encounter alum that demonstrate that it's that and more, a national college of distinction. So, but she is accurate. If you go to our website right now, or if you go into some of our collateral, we're using our general logo. And then we're using other messaging as well, because our faculty spent a lot of time this past year redeveloping our curriculum. A lot of the theme around our curriculum is about following your trail, a play off of the fact that we're a rural college, and there's absolutely a tie that binds among all Bethanians, but you can also carve your own pathway. And so we're using some trail language in certain marketing right now. There will be other messaging that we use for fundraising efforts. It's different than we use for enrollment efforts. And we may still use the language National College of Distinction. So, hopefully that answers the question for, but of course it's still a national college of high reputation.
So Jay Smith, class of 71, is asking really two questions. He wants to know how Bethany will differentiate itself from every other small liberal arts school, and also wants to know how you plan to utilize the rural location to your advantage.
Yeah, it's a good question. Thanks, Jay, for the question. I will tell you this. I think right now it's a very shrewd marketplace, and it's a very shrewd population that we're going after. Families, prospective students are very savvy when it comes to college choice. And of course, we like to say small class sizes and things like that, but so do a lot of other institutions. And there's a lot of other liberal arts schools. So it really comes down to the value proposition for students and families. And you can answer that value proposition in a variety of ways. Number one, price does matter. So everybody's worried about the pocketbook, and not that they always haven't been, but certainly these times of high inflation, and when there's questions about the ROI on a post-secondary education. So price does matter. But then on the other side of price is outcomes. And outcomes come in the form of different things. One is, what kind of jobs do students get upon graduation? What kind of graduate schools are they getting into? And ultimately, what are your alumni saying about the value of their experience at the institution? And that ultimately will be what differentiates us. We have to have academic programs that meet the marketplace. So that doesn't mean we're not going to be passionate around the liberal arts. We absolutely are. But it's going to be an and both. We're going to be passionate about the liberal arts, and we're going to meet the needs of the marketplace, whether the marketplace is corporations or whether the marketplace is, Sally, Susie, or John, who wants to major in X. Students seek out certain things. One of the first things they want to know is, do you have the major they're interested in? And if you don't, they're not coming to you. So we have to be responsive to that. And if you just reflect on the fact that if you look at things students major in today and what they majored in 30 years ago, 70% of that has changed. And so it doesn't mean we throw a baby out with bathwater by any stretch. And but we also have to be responsive to that. So that's how we'll do it. And frankly, the other thing is, and I get this question all the time when I travel the country and meet with alum want to hear with certainty that we're going to continue to be an environment where critical thinking is inspired and all voices are welcome. And it's unfortunate today in higher education that so many colleges, regardless of politics, left, right, however, so many colleges have become kind of one way of thinking or one way of doing things. And I think the secret sauce of Bethany, and clearly I've heard it from alum from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, is that it's a place where all voices are welcomed, that there's an intellectual curiosity that's constantly inspired, a debate is welcomed, and we're going to continue to do that. One of the things we frequently say is to prospective families is we want you to bring all of you to campus, not just part of you. So I think that's a way that we can be distinctive and stand out. Unfortunately, all colleges should be that way, but they're not right now. And that's one of the drums we're beating. And And I think it resonates, frankly, with the marketplace right now.
If I can, Faith, I'd like to add something too. And I talk to students, and I think that our alums will appreciate this that are listening in. I ask students what they like about Bethany or what they don't like, and some will say, Bethany, there's nothing to do here, and they're right. And then I talk to students and say, I'm so busy, I don't know what to do, and there's so much, and they're right too. And I think the students that really thrive at Bethany, which haven't changed, from the history of Bethany, to right now, you can come to Bethany and be active in many activities outside the classroom that perhaps many that weren't able to be involved with. In fact, even new activities, whether it be athletics, certainly we have lots of students that are student athletes, but we're also pushing performing arts right now too, whether it be theater, band, or chorus. In fact, offering scholarships in those areas for the students to participate. So I think what I find also that attracts students to Bethany is the opportunity to be involved, and with that expand new skills, and really a very subtle thing, but very important, is leadership. Because when these students are involved in these groups, they get to understand and develop their leadership skills. So that to me is a really important part of the Bethany experience.
And Faith, I realize I didn't answer the rural part of that question that Jay was asking. We're looking at that right now, to be perfectly honest with you, whether it's on the academic side with new programs or our curriculum, or on the co-curricular side. So for example, agribusiness is big business right now. And so we don't have any programs in that. I'm not announcing tonight that we have a program in that, but it's something that we're taking a look at. On the co-curricular side, we are looking, not everybody can have an equestrian program. We do. We own 20 horses. We have a beautiful stable at Oglebay. And frankly, in the last decade, it has not been featured at Bethany. In fact, most people don't even know we have it. So they do now, because it's a centerpiece of a lot of our marketing. We're giving scholarships to come and participate in that. So it's a great question that he's asking. I don't have all the answers tonight, but it's actually one we're running out right now.
And frankly, in the area of environmental studies, our biology department, and there's a lot of good news there too, and focusing on environmental studies too. So
actually, David Gunling sent in a question, another member of class of 79, actually a lot of suggestions about using that rural environment related to the types of offerings that you have, even suggesting environmental pre-law, because there are so many oil and gas issues in the area. And he listed a whole lot of other ones that you can take a look at on your own. And we'll move on now to another thing that people have been asking about, and certainly the link is on the screen now for the strategic plan. With both your short and long-term plans, what's the approximate ETA that Bethany College will be on firmer financial footing and better student retention? And that question comes from Donna Smith, 74, and James Gerb, 77.
Yeah, I love this. These are friends of mine. Thank you. They happen to be married, by the way, and they live down in the Tampa area. Good questions. If you look at the points of our plan, the first one's of course academic. 2 is the student experience. 3 really is fiduciary. And our plan is by 2025 really to have a balanced budget where we're not taking money away from our endowment. And I think most of you heard me say this at various town halls that I've been involved with. But in the fall of 2021, I called the trustees together to kind of explain the fact of lives of where we were as we were transitioning. And I frankly said that if we didn't change our tactics, in other words, if we didn't quit borrowing from our endowment, the incoming freshman would not graduate from Bethany College because we'll be out of cash. And that was a very dire point of our history. And it was time to get serious about what was going on. So this strategic plan, and I'll let Jamie talk about it because his performance review is based on the strategic plan, is to have a balanced budget by 2025. And I'll pass it to Jamie to talk about it some more.
Thanks, Ken. It is a North Star of ours. And when we talk about North Star, not everything can be a priority. So what's your priority? When you're facing an existential crisis, your balance sheet is your priority. And that's hard to say as an educator because, of course, we're student-centric and we want to make sure students are the center of our focus, but we've got to fix the finances. When we first got engaged with Bethany College, before I was president, frankly, That was what led to, Ken speaking about that moment of being out of business in a couple of years. At the time, if you look back to 2017, 2018, during that period, the college was running deficits annually of $4.5–5 million
On a budget of about 20 million, to give you perspective.
on a budget of 20 million. So it's a simple math equation. And of course, thankfully, because of having an endowment, it was able to at least sustain itself through that, but the runway was running out. So we focused firmly on getting the deficit down. So last year, we said the deficit would be below 3 million. In fact, the board last year approved a $2.95 million deficit. When I say last year, I mean the year. In academic world, your year runs from July to June. So the fiscal year that ends this month, the budget approved was a $2.95 million deficit, which doesn't sound great, but it's much further down than a $4.5 million deficit. And we're actually going to come in better than that. The budget that the board just approved last month for the next year is a $1.7 million deficit. And we are going to land the plane in about a year and a half. We will be break even, budget neutral. And the way you do that is largely off of enrollment. Yes, philanthropy matters, but we are a tuition-driven institution. And so you've got to have the numbers in students. We're fortunate in that regard, and I can share more about what our enrollment numbers are looking like. But we have every confidence that we will have this budget balanced within a year and a half. And and we have to have it balanced. By the way, since Ken mentioned that the runway was short and we were going to be out of business in 2 years, I want you to all be aware, just because of the work that's already been done by the board, the management team, and frankly, the whole community, our lifeline is much longer now. So we're out to about 10 years of life as an institution. And I'm still not satisfied with that, because you want to be 99 plus, and you're 99 plus when you have a balanced budget. And so we will be at 99 plus in about a year and a half. And we're on that trajectory. And it all ties to enrollment. Philanthropy matters. I'll talk tonight about our fundraising efforts, but enrollment matters. And Faith, I don't know if you want me to share about enrollment now, or if you want
Well,
to.
actually, the next question leads to that, because, Bethany is tuition based. And this Robert Carter, class of 76, would like to know, how many students does Bethany need to be profitable? How many do we have? And how do we fill the gap?
I want to thank these fraternity brothers of mine for sending these questions in. I don't know what I did to annoy them then, but I appreciate their curiosity.
These are the precise questions to be asking, though. When I arrived in January of last year as president, our census at that time was 511 students. It is unsustainable. The school would not survive at that. And some of that was because of self-inflicted wounds, but if you're paying attention to any of the headlines, there are headwinds all across America that are facing colleges. Just in West Virginia alone, Gordon Gee, who runs WVU, announced he's cutting $80 million out of their budget. So there are sector-related issues going on. But then, as we all know, Bethany had some self-inflicted wounds along the way. But last January, we had 511 students. Our break even is 800 students. Now, you can count that different ways, whether they're undergraduate or graduate students, but suffice it to say, 800 students is where we break even. We began this fall with close to 600 students, which equated to about a 12% increase year over year. This upcoming fall, we're anticipating having a census of 700 students. So all in, within about an 18-month period of time, we will be up in enrollment by at least 24%, potentially closer to 30%. We'll see how we do in the last innings here. To give you a little bit more detail around that, if you just take an average of the last 7 years, Bethany on average has enrolled about 185 students each year, new students. We are chasing 300 new students this year. As of today, we're sitting at about 267 new students planning to be here in the fall. So if we end up at 700 students in the fall, Bethany hasn't seen 700 students since 2012. So it'll be the highest enrollment in over a decade. That's good. It's progress. It's still not where we need to be. And so the strategic plan is clear that we need to be 900 students at the end of the plan. we at least need to get close to that. But if we get over 800 students, we should have a balanced budget. I call it economic equilibrium, because that's more than a balanced budget. Economic equilibrium is when you're blowing off some margin to reinvest in the physical plant, to reinvest in your faculty and your staff, to reinvest in new academic programs, and frankly, to save for a rainy day, because we borrowed from the endowment, so we have to start paying back the endowment, which, by the way, we've budgeted in our budget that we're talking about. We've actually budgeted in to start paying back the endowment too. So the school is in a much better fiscal position. I credit the board with a lot of that work. The management teams work very hard. Everybody has, but you know, it was a seminal moment 18 months ago, and I think everybody's responded appropriately. And you know, we're halfway through the strategic plan, and we're making progress.
We actually have a number of questions about enrollment, some of which you've already addressed. So I'm just going to try. Questions came in from William Samplatsky Jarman from 69, Frank Huffin 59, your friends Donna and James again, and T. Andrew Caswell from class of 2000. And they wanted to know about the retention statistics. They want to know how you're getting these new students, basically how you're going to retain them, and are you lowering the bar in order to get them?
Yeah, so there is
Don't say yeah.
you know, we're not lowering the bar to get them. But there's a trifecta you talk about when you're in the enrollment management business, and the trifecta is this: you want to increase your headcount, you want to increase the quality of the class, and you want to decrease the discount rate, meaning people are willing to give you more money to go there. And I am proud to say that for this upcoming year, of the 300 students we're chasing and the 267 that have already said yes, of course, we're hitting the number of the quality of the class. Right now, the average GPA of accepted students is 3.38, which is higher than the last 5 years. The ACT or standardized test scores, frankly, that's a little bit more difficult because so many people have given up on standardized tests. COVID kind of blew those doors off. But the quality of our class remains strong. It's actually stronger. And our discount rate is lower. And so we've, just to boil it down to you, for every dollar we were charging of tuition, we were giving back 80 cents on the dollar in scholarship money. That is the highest discount rate I've ever seen anywhere in the country. We've got it down to about 68% now, which is essentially average with our peers. I know for some of the business people out there, you're thinking you give away 68 cents on the dollar, but that's kind of how higher education works. You kind of have these high sticker prices, and then you have these discount rates. But we've got a better quality class and people willing to pay us more money to come.
And then, of course, the other link to that still is retention. Is them coming back. Jamie, we'll just cover that for a quick second.
Yeah, our one retention number you look at very closely is the freshman to sophomore retention rate. And Bethany struggled with that for several years in its recent history. It was hovering down in the low 60%. So think about that. For every 100 students that showed up in fall, by the next fall, only 60 of them were coming back, right? The national average is around 75%, which still, frankly, for a person like me, I feel like that's kind of an indictment for higher ed. Higher ed's got to figure that out. But we are much closer to 75% now. So our freshman to sophomore retention rate is closer to 75%. It's much easier to retain a student than to recruit a new one. And so we're doing better in that regard. Of course, we want to do even better than that, but we're at least on par with our peers and our competitors. I think part of the question too is how are we getting these students? And it's a multifaceted strategy. I will tell you, accountability had a lot to do with it. You have to hold your team accountable. And our enrollment team is a diversified, large group of people. It's an admissions staff. It's all of our coaches. It's our graduate program director. It's our equestrian coach. It's our head of fine arts, who is responsible for band, chorus, and theater. As we try to grow our enrollment, I hear this a lot that most of your students are athletes. That is true. Most of our students are athletes. By the way, there's nothing wrong with that because student athletes tend to be better students and perform better. However, I'll be the first to say we need more non-student athletes at the college. We average about 35 to 40 new students a year who choose Bethany for something other than athletics. I think we'd all agree that's unacceptable. So we had a deliberate strategy this year to increase the non-student athlete population. So we started giving scholarships for band, chorus, theater, equestrian, esports, and we've got 25 to 30 students that have said yes, that are going to come for that. So our non-student athlete population, our new non-student athlete population today is closer to 60 for next year than 35 to 40. So we're very proud of that. We want to continue to grow it. But it's a multifaceted approach. We've added some sports in some cases. We've added a lot of new academic programs. So, one example, we didn't have criminal justice last year. We added a bachelor's in criminal justice. We have 12 students coming to major in criminal justice. So those things matter.
So that actually answers Diane Howard's question, class of 72, who was asking if these new courses that you're adding are generating students.
They are, it's, time will tell with some of these programs because we're still getting known in the marketplace for them. Criminal justice is probably our most successful so far. We've seen a bump. Biology, our natural sciences at Bethany, I don't need to tell this group, it has always been very strong, very strong. And I know there's several alum that have been watching that have been very supportive with equipment and infrastructure and helping us. We're about to be finished with a $500,000 new lab in Kirkpatrick Hall. So the sciences have always been strong, but some of our partnerships we've executed this year are giving even a shot in the arm to that. So for example, we brokered a partnership with West Virginia School of Osteopathic Medicine and Northeast Ohio Medical College for their doctorate in pharmacy program. Those are guaranteed admissions. So high schoolers, when we accept them at Bethany, are guaranteed a seat in medical school if they come to Bethany College. So that's given us a bump. I mean, our number of biology majors it's probably our largest major coming in right now. There's no question the announcement of those partnerships have had an impact on that.
I'm sorry, I muted myself just to cough. I'm fighting off a cold, but I hope it's just a cold anyway. So there are several other questions about the academics offerings there. And of course, the ticklish one or the upsetting one to some students certainly is the education department. So Susan Holton, class of 72, wants to know that because the college was aware of what needed to be done to keep the education accreditation, what happened? And Martha Mitchell, class of 84, wants to know what the plans are for the department.
Susan, Martha, thanks for the question. Honestly, it's a sobering discussion, and I really want to take a few minutes to share all the information and make sure I've answered the question thoroughly, because I know it's on a lot of people's minds. It's absolutely one of the pain points the college is feeling right now. Let me give you a little bit of the history. Our education program at Bethany has struggled for a very long time, actually. When I arrived in January as president, honestly, I think within a week, I was handed a report by the then provost, Joe Lane, about our education department because our accreditor was asking for what's called a quality assurance report on our education department. The reason they were asking for that was because they were going to be coming to campus in the fall, which they did this last October, to do a site visit. The reason they were coming to do a site visit was because they had concerns about our education department. Those concerns are real and legitimate because unfortunately, our education program for nearly a decade has not been able to demonstrate proper outcomes, learning outcomes, or assessment that are required by the various accreditors. And there's a number of accreditors. So we have the Department of Education in the state of West Virginia. We have our specialized accreditor, which is the education accreditor. We have the Higher Learning Commission, which is our regional accreditor. All three of those bodies have indicated for almost a decade that there's problems in our education department. Some of those problems are not Bethany created. Small colleges that have education departments, lots of small colleges with education departments have been struggling. The reason they're struggling is because the standards of the regulators are very high, and it becomes difficult for small colleges with not a lot of faculty and not a lot of administration to meet those standards. I'll just give you one. One of the standards is a certain percentage of your students has to pass the national exam. It's called the praxis exam. And if that certain percentage doesn't pass, you get dinged. Well, if you're a small education department that only has 10 students and a certain percentage of them don't pass, you're automatically dinged just because of your small sample size. Other issues were self-inflicted. And the college owns a lot of responsibility for the challenges with the education department. So what happened in this past fall was the accreditor came in, made a decision to give us a 2-year accreditation. However, that triggered the state of Ohio, or I'm sorry, the state of West Virginia Department of Education to then tell us that we have to do a teach out in our education program. Because the state of West Virginia says if you don't get a 7-year accreditation from your accreditor, you no longer can be in the teacher certification business. We got a 2-year accreditation, but it wasn't 7. And so while the accreditor said you can keep going, the state of West Virginia said you can't. And so I know among some of our alum and some others, I've gotten the question frequently, are you closing your education program? I didn't close anything. The state of West Virginia came down and said, you are no longer in the business of teacher certification. So what that triggered was we had to do a teach out of our current students. Any student that was in our program and already progressed along to a certain point will certainly graduate from Bethany and be okay. We also had to get other colleges to partner with us just in case we aren't able to teach them out well. But then candidly, the board and I as president and the leadership team have had a very serious conversation these past couple of months about how do we move forward. Right now, we are not even allowed, even if we wanted to, even if we had a checkbook that we could write any check we wanted, we're not even allowed to apply to provide teacher certification for at least a year. And then after that, the accreditors will evaluate us and get to decide if we can get back in the business. So as a college, as a leadership team, we have a decision to make. First of all, we're in the business of providing high quality education. I think we'd all agree. If we can't do that, we shouldn't be in the business. We have not proven we can do this well. It doesn't mean that the students that we've graduated aren't great teachers. I've met a lot of them. They're phenomenal teachers. But we can't just continue to struggle along and have this kind of this black mark on us with accreditors, which frankly leaks out into the public, that brings our reputation down as an institution. So, and by the way, it's a costly program because of all the regulations. There's a lot of cost. And annually, we graduate just a handful of students with teacher certification. On the front end, we have a number of students interested in us that come to Bethany for education, but 70% of students change their major. So we end up not having a lot of students that graduate with the education degree. So where we're at, we are currently in talks with other institutions to partner, to collaborate on a potential education degree program so that students who come to Bethany can still have an education pathway. They can graduate with a teacher certification, an education degree in collaboration with another school, while also having a 4-year experience at Bethany. And I can't say much more about that because those conversations are ongoing and not quite concluded yet. But and I'll let Ken get in here. It has been on the hearts and minds of the board and management team. We've been working very hard at this for several months, and it has been a very difficult question that we've had to try to answer. Ken, anything you want to share?
No, I think you represented it well. It's been soul searching and really an integrity issue of looking at what we do and what we do well and being able to provide our students with quality education. I'll leave it at that. Faith?
We have some other questions going along with the academic theme. Let's stay there while we're there. This question comes from Barbara Commodore, class of 90. She wants to know what classes and programs Bethany is developing to help students deal with daily life that will occur after or even during college life, practical things, salary, employment, paying taxes, bills, insurance, paying back student loans, realizing that they won't be making 6 figures for a while when they graduate.
Barbara, I absolutely love the question. And I wish I had a perfect answer for you, but it won't be satisfactory right now because we're not doing enough there. We need to do more. We have talked extensively about what a bona fide, robust first-year experience looks like for our students. And right now, we don't have that for our first-year students. We do have some good first-year programming, but a true first-year experience that begins to introduce a lot of the concepts that you're talking about, things like financial literacy, are extremely important, especially when you look at our student profile. Almost 50% of our students are Pell eligible students, meaning that their families can pay less than $5,000 to go to school. Almost 50% of our students are first generation college students. So these are students that need that kind of support. And it's not that they're not getting any of what you're talking about now, but we frankly need to do a better job. And we're having that conversation right now. Right now on campus, for example, when freshmen move in, they live all across campus with upperclassmen, and there's no true first year experience on our campus. So we're making a move to bring our freshmen back to the center of campus so that they can have not only a shared residential experience, but programmatically, they have a unique experience that introduces them to some of the concepts you're speaking about. And that's not just a freshman year thing, that goes all throughout their 4 years. The other thing, frankly, we need to do a much better job of is career development. Our Career Development Center right now is located in the basement of Moreland Hall. So nothing wrong with Moreland Hall. I know there's a lot of great memories in Moreland Hall from people that are on this call tonight. But generally speaking, if you go on a college campus, you don't find the Career Development Center in the basement of a building. And so we really need to make career development a centerpiece of what we do, and everything that goes into that, right? Career readiness, professional preparation, et cetera. So part of our strategic plan is to make that a centerpiece of campus. We've actually talked about putting that in Phillips Hall. And an office like that will touch on financial literacy, career preparation, life skills, things like that. So thanks for calling us out on it. You're holding us accountable. We're not there yet, frankly. We got some work to do on that, and I promise we'll get to it.
We have a question that came from Ken Miller, class of 67. And he's asking why financially capable families don't feel Bethany is worth considering. And might it be the dismal, decrepit impression they get coming into town? And Marcella Brown-Leave, class of 2010, writes that she visited the campus last summer with her husband as a current Central Ohio resident and was disheartened to see the signed campus signs, bulletin boards, and the Bethany Bridge in disrepair and in needing of painting and or replacement. And not to mention the town and businesses aren't there anymore.
Well, I can speak about some of the specific projects, but Ken, I'm sure you have something to say on this as well.
Well, obviously, it started off. First of all, thanks, Ken, for asking that question. I appreciate that, and it's a true statement. And we all know the town of Bethany and the college are one and the same. And I would share with you that everybody that we're working closely. There's a handful of trustees. Dean Lesiak is leading it with Scott Brooks, two of our trustees, and Thad Allen, who's a part of the town history, working with the town itself, the mayor. Renovation of Main Street is an important project, and looking at different things we can do to do that. It's the front door to Bethany College. I'll let Jamie talk about. We're talking to various entrepreneurs about a Bubba's type replacement, whether it be at Bubba's or another place for opportunities for dining and alcohol consumption in the town. Just the beautification of it. Those are important issues. And Jamie's as a college president has embraced it, where historically other ones have said, the town's not our problem. Well, it is our problem. It's all part of the same. But Jamie, why don't you talk a little bit about some of the things that are actually, we're looking at that. In fact, it goes in the strategic plan. As a matter of fact, point 5 of the plan is partnership. So, Jamie.
Sure. I think it's a really important question. And frankly, we hear it all the time about the deferred maintenance on campus, or the wear and tear of town, et cetera. And it's true and it's real. And, where where Bethany College goes, so goes the town of Bethany and vice versa. So you can't think of this mutually exclusively. It really is an and both. I do want to share, what it's a big physical facility, right? I mean, there's 33 buildings and 1,100 acres. If you estimate our deferred maintenance, it's probably somewhere around $40 million. So it is not inconsequential. It's a bit overwhelming. That being said, the college really had not invested substantially to begin addressing the deferred maintenance in a material way in its last few years. And that's addressing, frankly, some of the non-sexy stuff like roofs that are critical. And then some of the things just the marketplace wants. And so we've made a deliberate decision in the last 18 months to invest. And I'm pleased to say we're going to be investing about $4 million in the physical facilities of campus. And you will see it very soon. So for anyone that's coming back at homecoming, you're going to see a ton of progress. Let me just give you a few examples. So we've invested $500,000 in roof repairs, everything from Old Main to the rec center and so on. There's a lot of roofs on campus, but we're starting.
And I would add,
flat roofs,
flat roofs,
a lot of flat roofs,
which are
of
difficult.
course, that's not exciting. That doesn't get you a single new student to enroll, the fact that you repaired a roof, but it was necessary. A lot of people know we opened Boomers back up. I call that a small base hit, but it was exciting that we got Boomers back open. But now let's talk about some of the bigger projects we're working on. This fall, we'll open up, I mentioned already, Kirkpatrick Hall's new science lab. It is spectacular. It's a $500,000 renovation. It's beautiful. We have to be able to compete with students coming out of high schools that are able to build out these beautiful labs with tax dollars. And the irony is our sciences is one of our strongest programs, but our science building, my gosh, Richardson Hall, it is in really need of a second life. But we're at least pleased that we got this lab coming. We've got $1 million renovation going on right now at Harlan Hall. That's going to be complete for August. So we're going to have almost 60 students moving into a completely renovated residence hall, which, by the way, was shuttered. It's in the center of campus and it was shuttered, which is terrible, right, for a campus. So that'll be newly renovated. We've got about $500,000 going into an esports lab and classroom in the basement of Phillips Hall, which is not just a co-curricular activity. That's a co-curricular, but it's also curricular. We have an esports minor that we have approved, the faculty have approved. The faculty just passed game development, which has not been approved by our accreditor yet, but probably will be. So there's a lot of learning that'll happen in that arena. By the way, it'll be really cool as well. And a lot of students, prospective students, are going to love it. We just made a decision and the board just approved a month ago. And this will be kind of breaking news here because we've not put a press release out yet on this. We are doing a serious renovation to the rec center. It'll be about $1.25 million renovation to the rec center. We're calling it phase one because there's more that's needed up there. But right now, we do not have a fitness center on campus for our students, faculty, staff, or the people in town. And I'm not talking about an intercollegiate athlete weight room. That's not what this is about. This is about having facilities that families want to have, whether you're coming here for athletics or not. So that'll be done for the fall. So students will see a new fitness center. We are in conversations right now to put an eatery in that fitness center so that there's another alternative besides our cafeteria. No disrespect to our food service, but you got to have some options in town. The other night, it was late. I got done with meetings at 7:30 on Tuesday night. So I drove down to Breezy's to eat. Breezy's was closed. So I'm like, okay, I'll drive down to Drover's. Drover's was closed. I'm like, okay, I'll go to the Crooked Dock. They were closed. I'm like, my God, we need a place to eat. So we're going to try to get an eatery in there as well. And then we've got a psychology lab that's going to be put in. We've got some other things going on. So you will see, for those that are coming back this fall, about $4 million of investment. We got a lot more to do. Most of that is off of fundraising. We have raised annually, typically Bethany raises between $2 to $2.5 million to help out with operations or capital projects. Year to date, we are sitting at right about $8.5 million pledged or given. And that is, a tremendous debt of gratitude is owed to our board for their leadership on this. Certainly our advancement team's been working hard, but frankly, a lot of you have given to this already. We're in the silent phase of a campaign. I like to say it's the worst kept secret because my job as president is to let everybody know I'm trying to raise money, but we couldn't do these things if we didn't have these resources coming in, and we're using a lot of those pledged gifts to help us do some of these projects.
Well, a question has come in from Charles Nahoff, class of 93, about where is the donation money being used. I think some alums over the years have raised concerns about, well, we gave to this project or that project and it just never happened. So there's a reluctance to dig back into the pocket again.
It's a true statement, and it's a fair concern. And Ken and I and the board have talked explicitly about this, right, Ken? That we know that there have been occasions in the past where people have given, and either the money's gone to what it was given for, but we did a terrible job communicating, or frankly, in some cases, the money may not have gone to what it was given for. One of the reasons we're doing the rec center project, beyond the fact that it's really needed, is because about 6 years ago, a number of people gave to do a rec center project, which they've never seen come to fruition. And frankly, it just struck against our core values. It's been bothering all of us, board members, management team alike, for 18 months. And so we finally decided we're doing this. And so we went back, we did a deep dive into the pledges and gifts so that we make sure every single one of those gifts is honored. So as president, I'm sorry that that's happened in the past. I commit to you that it will not happen in the future. I promise you that if somebody gives us a gift towards an initiative, whether it's an academic program, a co-curricular, or a building project, if for some reason we don't raise all the money and we can't actually follow through, we have one of two options. The first option is to come back to you and say, can we repurpose your gift? Hopefully you'll say yes if that ever happens. But if not, the second option is we got to give you the money back. That's it. That's it. And so, Ken, is there anything you want to say?
No, it's an issue of trust, and I think, and I speak specifically to my own class of 77, who raised $40,000, 6 years ago to help with that rec center, and it just sort of faded away. And I would add that we looked into it closely with the audit committee and raised it, and talked seriously with Jamie to say this, this needs to be taken care of, and we are. I want to pivot for one quick second. I got a text from Dean Lesiak, who's working on the town stuff. I always appreciate Dean when he texts me because the conversations last a long time. There's a Masonic building in town that was sold recently. And the intention there, of course, is to put apartments on top, restaurant on the main floor, and on the basement, outdoor activity, which would include bicycling, mountain biking, and working and rafting on the Buffalo. And then the college unit is in the process of renovation, returning to its original form. And lastly, Mayor Kemp, Shirley Kemp, who has been an employee of Bethany College for 50 some years, who's the mayor of Bethany, we're working with her to clean up the town. There's a number of homes that are in disrepair, and it's not something Bethany historically has been involved with, but really enforcing zoning regulations such that the town cleans up. So again, we're working closely with the town. Thanks, Dean, for the text.
So while we're on the town, there's a question that comes from William Simplatsky Jarman, class of 69. He wants to know what you're doing to strengthen the relationship with disciples of Christ, particularly in attracting youth to enroll.
Thanks.
I'll start. The church has been a great partner of ours. We have a handful of trustees that are active in the church, including specifically Thad Allen, but it's been a big part of it. But the point is that in our dark days, the church was there to supply loans for us to help us meet payroll. So we're past that phase right now, but they were there to help us in dark times. And as far as going forward, Jamie, I'll let you address that.
Yeah, I love the question because it's part of our distinctiveness. It's who we are. It's in our DNA. And my faith tradition is not DOC, but when I arrived at the school, I was struck by the fact that we weren't animating that more. And it's in macro and micro ways. For example, we didn't have a chaplaincy. And so we've restored the chaplaincy. And so the pastor of Bethany Church is now the chaplain of the college, with specific charge to help animate the DOC mission. We have a committee of the Board of Trustees that's called the Church Relations Committee that, we talk, one of our focuses is enrollment and trying to enroll more students coming out of the DOC churches. And I'd love to tell you today that we're killing it in that regard. We're not. Unfortunately, all church-related schools aren't getting as many students from their church-affiliated partners as they would like. But we are doing better in that regard. I know that in this incoming class, we do have a handful of DOC students coming, and it's specifically because of that initiative. And then we're trying to work more closely. Like we have the Historical Society in town. And, I think some people forget how important Bethany is to the life of the church. It is ground zero. It is this jewel of the church that people care about nationally. And so
it was moved, by the way, from Nashville to Bethany. And
Yeah,
so it's a thriving business, if you will, in Bethany, between the mansion of the Campbell Mansion, as well as it's just people are visiting.
So, for example, Alexander Campbell's collection, which we store right now at the college, and frankly, I'm very concerned about the collection because we don't. It's not necessarily a temperature-controlled environment that it's stored in. So we just put in an application with the Historical Society for a grant to help expand their space, but also store our collection. So we're looking in a variety of different ways, including in some financial ways where we collaborate together. So we're trying to throttle that up. Pastor Thad Allen is really important to that. He's the vice chair of our board and a bishop in the church, so to speak, and he's been very instrumental in helping us draw closer to the church.
So moving on to a question from David George, class of 92. He wants to know that if you think Bethany alums should have greater latitude and opportunity to be more directly involved in working with the college, as opposed to feeling fairly ignored and disregarded as many of them truly feel. And he's also wondering about the possibility of using alumni in mentor roles for students who are struggling.
So I know David. I see him quite frequently. He's he's a big fan of campus and does mentoring lots of classes. I know the comm department has David in, so thanks, David, for the work you do for the college and already mentoring our students. One of the things I think we talked about in an earlier town hall is this real situation where we frustrate our alumni, because alumni say, "Hey, I want to help." They offer to help, and then we don't take them up on helping, and we're sensitive to that. And there's some practical reasons why that frustration exists. First of all, we don't have deep benches on campus, and so lots of people reach out with lots of ideas and lots of ways to help, and we simply can't harness them all, or we don't have enough resources to do it all. However, we absolutely need to do a better job in developing our mentoring network. I know between Lori Weaver, who's on today's call as our Chief Advancement Officer, and Amy Spencer, our Chief Career Development Officer, we are working real time to try to build that network out by discipline. Students need that help. I think we all know on this call, you got to know your stuff, but who you know matters. Who you know matters. And if we have a communications major that wants to be in broadcasting, well, that's great. But if we can connect her to Faith Daniels, that's even greater.
She's busy.
She's busy.
Can't afford her.
I don't think you'd reach her.
But look, I just want to be frank for a minute. I know there's been times we've very much frustrated alumni on this question. And I'm sorry that that's the case. And we're trying to build out the infrastructure more so that we can be more receptive to your willingness to help. And part of that is in our expansion of the Career Development Center. But so David, I know you know how to reach me. I'd love to talk more with you about that issue. So
We have a sort of related question to that coming from Jake Stemmerich, class of 19. He's saying it's no secret that advanced data analysis, engineering, and development are taking over all industries. AI and machine learning are buzzwords. What curriculum is Bethany offering to teach the students these topics? And is there any appetite for bringing AI ML experts who are Bethany alums back to campus to have them work with the students?
Yes, I mean, that's a super hot topic right now. In fact, I don't know if everybody's aware of who our commencement speaker was, but it was an executive from Google who's deep in the AI space. And in our sidebars at dinner and whatnot, we talked a lot about the Chat GPT and the data analytics, et cetera, and whatnot. So we currently don't have a degree in data analytics. It's a hot area right now. There's a lot of activity around that. So it's something that I, along with faculty and provost, are talking quite a bit about. And of course, I would welcome the support of alum. And so please reach out to me.
I think specifically, the curriculum is catch up. I think one of the things that Bethany offers, I think we all would agree to, is not only it's education, but it teaches you how to think. My own son, Matt, graduated from Bethany in 2001. And think about what was happening in 2001. Social media didn't exist. Then he goes to work for a consulting firm in DC, and he's doing social media that didn't even exist when he was a college student. So the point is it's ever changing, it's evolving, and I think Bethanians are set for this thing, and to have alumni come back and chat with the students, we welcome that. It's tremendous.
Well, here's a question that sort of relates to that. And this is coming from Sarah Parker, class of 75, who's saying so many in her class have no desire to return to campus. And our 50th is right around the corner. She's many are discouraged because they feel the campus is run down and not the same. Our class is strong with great connections to each other. Many see each other yearly at planned gatherings away from West Virginia, and we stay in contact regularly. How can Bethany help us organize and encourage our alumni to celebrate and be involved?
Yeah, well, it saddens me to hear that comment, but I appreciate where it's coming from. I will tell you that our advancement office, we've expanded our advancement office. So what does an advancement office do? It does lots of things. People think of fundraising, but a really important part of that is alumni relations. And we know that in recent times, Bethany's dropped the ball at times on alumni relations. So we've tried to expand that out. I think many people know Dino, Emily, that's doing a great job in that regard. And Dino has helped coordinate and organize a number of class reunions already. And so he would be the specific person that would help coordinate, organize the logistics of trying to bring that 50th class back. And of course, we want to welcome you back. We want to host you and give you the red carpet treatment. So anything I can personally do as president, but I absolutely know Lori is taking this one down in her notes, because we can specifically follow up with you on how we can coordinate to bring you home.
And Dino is on the call tonight. So you can,
Yes,
Sarah, if you're on the call, you can also direct message him right now tonight and get his attention and a way to contact you to reach out to you. It seems as though many people are, saying, what can we do? Can we mentor? Can we help? How do we come back? How do we contribute? How do we organize? What do you think the alumni can do, need to do, have to do?
Dan,
do you want to start? Then I can finish.
Well, I'll start. There's always an ask, but I'll start with one that I think is to repeat what I've asked for before. Is Faith, you captured it. We're a tuition-based institution, and our cash flow comes from students. And the more quality students we have, the better off we're going to be. And Jamie mentioned 800 is the break even, but consider this, that in fact, if you can help influence, and speaking to our alumni, if you can help influence to bring one student to come to Bethany and stay for 4 years, that's equivalent to a $60,000 contribution. So be proud and help us in the enrollment area. There's other areas, but that is one common area that would help us a lot. Jamie?
Yeah, first of all, you're exactly right, Ken. So we certainly want student referrals. I will also say that, we need your relationships and we need your expertise in various ways. So one of the things that I don't think anybody will be surprised about, because every industry is talking about how they collaborate for efficiency and effectiveness to serve the needs of the community. And that includes higher education. So right now, and it's a pillar of our strategic plan, is partnerships. So most of the partnerships we've announced this past year have been with other educational institutions, colleges, Brooke County High School, et cetera. We are working on some corporate partnerships, but frankly, we need more relationships there. We need to be in relationship with corporate America. And I'm using that term very loosely, but whether it's corporate, nonprofit, et cetera, we absolutely need to broker those sorts of partnerships so that we can align Bethany's brand with other very powerful brands. And many of you are very successful in living lives with great significance that either are working in some of those organizations or have relationships with people in those organizations. And we want to broker partnerships. The future of education is where corporations or communities are co-developing new programs together. They're co-developing curriculum because you're building the pipeline of their workforce. Yesterday, I sat down with one of our alum, Jennifer Rohrig. She's a fairly young alum, but very successful with the Regional Economic Development Organization in West Virginia. And she helped bring Form Energy to West Virginia. Form Energy Senator Manchin just kind of cut the ribbon on Form Energy last week. They're going to have 750 employees in West Virginia. Most of the employees they need are engineers. So companies like Form Energy need to co-develop programs with educational institutions. So we want those relationships for sure. I'm not ashamed and not afraid to ask for your financial support. That's my job. I don't think anybody's surprised by that. We're in a campaign, and there's ways everybody can give back, whether it's through being part of our annual fund. We're trying to get 500 people to contribute $1,000 annually to the college. Right now, it's around 250, and we really should be closer to 500. And if God's blessed you in a particular way of great affluence, of course, we'll take a bigger check as well. But I need to be the chief asker of those kinds of things, and I'm not ashamed to do it. And so, but also, we just mentioned Dino Emily. Part of his job is plan giving as well. So we've not done a very good job in that regard as well. This fall,
Dino, you mean in the past? You mean Dino has not done a good job? You mean it hasn't been done well in the past?
Not Dino. I'm saying the college really hasn't focused on planned giving. So you think
just bailing you out.
Yeah, thank you for bailing me out, Faith. But this fall,
I just got a text from Dino. He's busy.
This fall, I'll be traveling around the country. Dino will probably be joining me. Lori will be joining me. Scott Brooks, one of our alum and trustees, will be joining me. One of the things you can do is just receive us. We're going to want to have socials. We want to bring alum together to be in conversation and fellowship together. And, we need some people to support us in that effort. So if we call, just hopefully you'll answer the phone.
Anything else you gentlemen would like to add before we wrap up tonight? I think we covered all the questions that were submitted, so we're good there.
Just a thanks to our alum and our friends that are on tonight to see such a great turnout. One of the first things I told Ken before becoming president, and part of the reason I said yes was because of the passion of Bethany. And if the passion doesn't exist, nothing else matters. And this is a passionate people. And so I'm grateful for all the support you already give. Thanks for participating. Thank you, Faith, for being our host tonight.
And thank you for having these. I think that it's good to connect to people who are passionate, as you say, and absolutely love the institution and how it changed their lives. So I think having these sessions and getting the information out is so important. Just a few points of business before we sign off. If you submitted a question in the chat session tonight that wasn't addressed here, all the questions will be answered on the website by sometime this week, hopefully, if not the beginning of next week. This session has been recorded and will be up and running tomorrow on the Bethany website. And you have a link to the strategic plan there. If you didn't take a look at it tonight, you can copy that link now and go over it later. It was a pleasure to talk with you guys and hear what's going on at Bethany. Hopefully I'll be there to see you in person there soon. I know you're pretending to be there, Ken, right now in Phillips Hall. We can all pretend to be there,
That's
but
right.
we'll actually be there. Good night, everyone. Thanks for joining us and taking
Thank you.
time out of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.